All right. Guys, welcome to Automating Success Show. I'm Joe Langton.
And I'm Julia Langton.
Introduce yourselves to our audience for us.
I'll go first, I guess. I'm Beth Carpenter. I'm a meteorologist and co-owner of Thermodynamic Solutions. You can call us TDS Weather for short because the other is kind of complicated to say. Also a storm chaser, but meteorology is kind of my thing.
Okay.
My name's Joseph Cooper. I go by JT, so you're going to hear them calling me that for short, because that's easier to say than Joseph, I guess. So I'm a meteorologist as well, and I'm a co-owner at Thermodynamic Solutions as well. And so that's kind of what I am, what I do here at the company.
Okay, so I heard two co-owners. So are you guys the only two owners?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
So the entire company right now is just us two.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys split up your roles then? You know, what's Beth best at and what's JT best at?
We both take on the forecasting and the forensic roles. We kind of split it up by forecast area, and they kind of just fell into place. They weren't like by specialties or anything like that. So I kind of take care of the northern, southern Ohio forecast areas as well as Indiana, and JT takes care of northern, southern Illinois, southern Michigan, and southern Wisconsin. So we kind of group it together that way. Not sure how Michigan kind of got thrown out there by itself for him, but
it's a great league state.
Yeah, so he does really well at that area. So we both do the forecasting. JT does the long range forecasting. I do like the graphics for it and stuff, but he actually is more involved in like the pattern analysis for the long range and pushes that out to clients every week. So I really enjoy the snowfall forecasting. He really, really enjoys the severe weather forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely more his thing.
Yeah. So Beth, you said you do storm chasing. JT, do you do that also?
Oh yeah. I didn't think to add that.
You know?
Yeah. I've been storm chasing for going on 17 years now.
Yeah,
so
he's been doing it longer.
I'm considered a storm chasing veteran, I guess you will say at this point. But I've been doing that for really about since I got my driver's license, which I'm sure was just to the thrill of my parents. But so I've been doing it a while.
See, and I bet he's ready to go out and storm chase now hearing that. And for me, when you guys said it, or when Beth said it at first, it actually terrified me because that is something I would never be able to do.
So you guys both have to know I'm super excited about this podcast today because, you know, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a meteorologist. And I kind of have a quick little story how, for me, that's what I wanted to do. My dad loved the weather. My dad wanted to be in meteorology. Unfortunately, his dad died young, and he had to take care of his mom and his sisters. So he wasn't able to fulfill that dream. So as a kid, every time I came home, you got to know this, like when the Weather Channel it was just the weather and not everything else. You know, and it was always playing. And my dad loved Tom Skilling because we're in Chicago, okay, and he's like the idol in the Chicago market.
Yeah.
So anyways, one day I said to my dad, if this is all that's going to be on TV, you've got to start to teach me about it. Because, you know, I'm a kid. I want to watch cartoons and whatever I want to do. So he did. He started to teach me about his passion for the weather. And one day when I was younger, I told my dad, like, I want to be a meteorologist. And he literally picked up the phone, called WGN Studios, called and asked if he could get me a meeting with Tom Skilling. Okay. I mean, wow. It's crazy. Tom Skilling said yes. So my dad takes me, I watch a whole newscast. I just have to share this because I think this is just awesome for you guys.
So a little bit of a funny relation to that. Tom Skilling is called my meteorology grandfather.
Really?
I don't actually know him. I don't know him. It's because the person, so I guess they kind of joke that, like, you know, who you intern under is kind of like your meteorology parent, and then who they interned under is your grandparent, because you learn like the same, you know, methods that they use and stuff. So yeah, I interned at Fox 59 in Indianapolis under Brian Wilkes, and he interned with Tom Skilling because he's from the Chicago area. So anyway, kind of
Right,
a small world relationship.
Right now.
So listen, I mean, you could probably see I'm beaming right now. There might be a glow coming off of me. If you have to send this to, you said Brian Wilkes?
Yeah, Brian Wilkes.
Okay, you've got to just share this to him. So maybe it makes its way to Tom, because if somehow if I could get Tom Skilling on a podcast and just send it to my dad, it will literally make my dad's life.
He does I think he does speaking engagements and stuff like that. So he might.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
We're both really good friends with Brian Wilkes. I actually met him in high school because that's what I wanted to be in high school, as a meteorologist as well. And he's like, yeah, you should send me weather reports, become a weather watcher. Then when I started storm chasing, I actually would go out in the field and live stream storms for them. And I will tell you, we've had Brian Wilkes speak. Brian Wilkes does an absolutely phenomenal impression of Tom Skilling. He's like, Tom would always say, Brian, that's a 500 millibar vorticity jet. And that's going to come down here and find its own moisture. And so he just does this amazing, amazing impression. Not nearly, I mean, it's way better than what I do of Tom Skilling. It's just, he does the whole like hand gestures and movements and everything. It's just classic. But yeah.
Well, the thing about Tom is, and I will say, like, everybody talks to me about how passionate we are about what we do. And I don't know that I've ever seen a meteorologist as passionate as Tom Skilling when he's on, you know. And
Brian is very close,
is he?
I would say.
I think he's very fortunate that WGN understands that he is like airtime gold, and they give him so much time to talk about the weather. And I know there's been people that have been like, man, just tell me the forecast already. And I'll tell them, you should just turn on like Channel 5 or something then, because people like me appreciate the 10 minutes of weather.
And it's funny you say that, because actually my first year of meteorology school, I went to the College of DuPage up in Glen Elm. And so like my kind of what I love to do, because I lived in South Elgin, was I would like to go along the Fox River and do the Fox River Trail. And, you know, I just love to be in outdoors. And I would I'm a very personable person. So I'd see people and we'd get to talking, and we'd get to talking, of course, natural about the weather. And I'd tell them, you know, I was a meteorology student, et cetera. And they're like, oh, do you know Tom Skilling? And I'm like, no. And we get to talking about that. And they'd be like, you know, I really like his forecast, but, you know, I don't need 10 minutes of weather. But that's just Tom Skilling for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you're saying you grew up in South Elgin. I don't know.
I didn't grow up there, but I went to school there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Elgin.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Which is, see, this is what's crazy about podcasts, is you go on a podcast and you have no idea what you're going to find out about somebody.
I'm going to ask you, are you a White Cottage pizza fan?
No. So
all right, we're done.
Okay. So here's the thing. So I don't know how old you are. So, I mean, I graduated high school in 97. And so for me, I'm trying to think. So like they're in South Elgin. Do you remember a place called Calderones and Ali's? Yeah. Okay. We were related to them. That's like my mom's side. The Calderones are related to my mom. So, and I'm 50% Italian. My mom's all Italian. So the way the Italians do it is, if you have family someplace, doesn't make a difference if it's great pizza or not, you eat it there. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, okay.
So I kind of lived a sheltered life, I suppose, when it comes to pizza in Elgin. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
If that makes you feel any better about things.
Yeah, I'll that's an acceptable answer, I guess.
So I don't know how old you are, but what school did you go to then?
Well, I went to the College of DuPage for my first year, and then I transferred to Mississippi State.
Oh, so you didn't go to high school. You weren't like in high school.
I did. I'm from Indiana. I just went to COD my first year of college.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my audience wouldn't really care about us reminiscing about Elgin anyways.
Yeah, I know.
But, probably move on. But I thought it was crazy that we experienced time at the same location for a while. So, well, here, I'll finish up my Tom story just in case somehow this makes it to him. So my dad gets me a meeting, and we end up meeting him 4 times through my life, you know, and he would always give me weather maps to bring back for extra credit. So anyways, just an amazing guy. Right. I cannot think of any professional that would just allow people to just come and hang out. And we talked to him like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And anyways, just the most awesome human being and individual I've ever met in my life. So that's it. Okay.
So here, how'd you guys start working together?
Yeah.
Well,
Julia,
we're engaged for one, but
Ooh, I didn't know that.
congratulations.
Thanks. But I mean, we didn't actually like intend to. We actually didn't even, and it wasn't never a plan to start our own company, actually. Because JT's older than me, and I was still in college. He was working for a different, and I went to Ball State University, which is actually where I'm from in Muncie, Indiana. And I was still in college. He was working for a different weather consulting company. And he needed to get out of that for several reasons and didn't know exactly what, it kind of took the wind out of his sails for meteorology at that point and didn't know exactly what he wanted to move forward with. I still knew I wanted to do meteorology for sure. And, a couple months later, of course, he was like all over the weather maps and everything again. And anyway, our family kind of ended up pushing us and we're like, well, you guys could do your own thing. You don't have to do work for somebody else. You could do your own consulting. So they kind of pushed us to do that. And then one thing led to another. We're like, okay, well, I guess maybe I'll create a website for this. And I guess I'll, look into this or whatever. And a few months later, we started our own company and it's been over 4 years now. So.
Yeah, we kind of went from like thinking, oh, we'll just get our toes wet to like barely dipping our big toe in the water and then just being like, we're just going to jump in, I guess. So, go all in.
That's kind of how we did it. So I think that's,
oh, really?
that's typically how it starts. So, I have to say, like my brother, Beth started to see your guys' stuff in Indiana, like your guys' forecasts online or maybe on LinkedIn, maybe. And
Possibly.
we were using a different service, which is it was basic, just give us alerts. But my brother was like, hey, we have to really start looking into TDS because like they give.
Oh, really?
And, so yeah, what you guys are doing, it's good. It's a different.
That's great.
Great.
I didn't have a LinkedIn, and I probably didn't have. I can't remember what year I started it, but at least the first year and a half of our company, I didn't have LinkedIn. And my dad was like, you should get a LinkedIn and just start posting stuff on there. I'm like, but I don't know anybody. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I post things and then comment to myself on there and be like, I hope I did this right. And people don't get mad, because people don't like you posting stuff that should be on Facebook and that kind of thing. So I was like, is weather okay? And anyway, I just started getting a ton of LinkedIn requests, more than I could keep up with. And they ended up, it was a bunch of snow removal guys and they started messaging and, we kind of exploded in the snow sector from there. It was really LinkedIn that did it. And it wasn't me reaching out to people. It was me just posting what I normally do and people being like, wow, that was really helpful. How'd you know that was going to happen? And, stuff like that. I totally can't even remember the initial question because I went down a rabbit trail.
How'd you guys start working together? I think was where I think you're doing great.
The rabbit trail was.
I wasn't thrown out.
So right now it is just the two of us still. We've been in talks with a part-time meteorologist because over the past couple of years, things have just exploded for us. We've been growing rapidly and it's been hard to keep up with. So we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So that's why we're doing that. We don't really have a desire to grow into this big national corporation or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We like being able to have personal conversations with our clients and get to know them and, service them. So we don't have which is probably weird. I guess most people probably want to get just huge. We want to stay semi-small so we can maintain the relationships that we have now and keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's important that you guys, what you want to be, and kind of know the direction and your goals and how you want to communicate with your core group of customers. So I think that's good. I think that every business owner, even ourselves, between my brother and I'm the one who wants to have this national dominance. Well, not so much in snow removal. It's just our 100-mile radius is insanity, but but for us, it's the robotic lawn mowers, and now we're in the robotic snow clearing machines.
Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, so for that we do. But so did you guys, I mean, as you guys were kids, you know, what was the aha moment where you were like, weather, this is what we want to do?
For me, okay, you go ahead, JT.
Oh, okay. You know, for me, honestly, so I mean, every kid obviously has like that. At least I think I shouldn't say every kid, but especially boys have that moment where obviously they always want to be like the, you know, NBA superstar. So I grew up watching Reggie Miller play in the Pacers. So, you know, there's a time in my life where I was like, yeah, I want to be Reggie Miller, you know, I'm 8 years old. But no, honestly, though, when I was, and I don't remember this, but my parents and grandparents always tell me, we had a meteorologist in the Indy market called Bob. His name was Bob Gregory. And he was kind of, when I was growing up, was kind of the meteorologist to turn to, especially for winter storms. He loved forecasting winter storms. Really good guy, really nice guy. Anyways, and my grandparents always like, and my parents were always like, I can remember us having Bob Gregory on, and you're like 4 years old pointing at the TV being like, I want to do that. And so that's kind of what I, from kind of the start, really wanted to be, other than just obviously that phase of wanting to be a professional athlete. But so I can't really remember of time where I can legitimately say there was anything else I really wanted to pursue. When I was into my teen years, mid to late teens, when I first started storm chasing, that's when, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of like Reed Timmer or Sean Casey or those guys who are like big time storm chasers. That's, you know, and it's like, I was like, oh, I want to storm chase. Like, that's what I want my career to be. And it's not impossible to make that your career, but it's darn hard. And after a few years of doing that and pursuing that heavily, it was just like, to me, is like, it just made sense to get a degree and then make it my profession to be a meteorologist in general, not necessarily a storm chaser. And so, I mean, really, since I can remember, and since I really can't remember, I guess I've wanted to be a meteorologist and be involved in the weather somehow.
Awesome.
I had like a very defining moment when I did. So of course, being in Indiana, the Indy 500 is huge around here. So we have a cookout at my grandparents' house, which is only a few minutes away from the track, every year. And in 2004, we were down there for the race. And, you know, that was back when they had a pool and stuff before we ripped it out. But we were playing in the pool. I was, I don't know, like 8, 9 at the time. And, you know, it started to like rain on us and we didn't care because we were in the pool, we were kids. And then it started like hailing in the pool on us. And apparently nobody was watching the weather like responsible adults. And they were just listening to the race instead. And so we were kind of oblivious. And so it started hailing, got out of the pool. We made it into the garage. And all of a sudden it was pitch black outside, and they started like shoving us into the bathtub, throwing comforters and pillows on us. And like there was a dog and a cat in there, and they hated each other. And it was like all my cousins, my aunts and uncles, like it was a big cookout. And here we all were like squished in this bathroom, except for my grandpa, my dad, and my uncle, who stood in the living room by the door and watched as a tornado came down and ripped right through the backyard. And it ended up destroying the pool that we were in and like uprooting like 16 trees, and took a truck shell that we had laying out there under bricks and threw it like 500 yards under some trees in the woods. And so it did a lot of damage. Luckily, no damage to the house. We were all fine. But at that moment, it took two directions for me and my cousins and my sister. So my sister's also a meteorologist. We're twins. And yeah. And my sister and I at that moment were like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like, I want to know more about that. We even like wrote a letter to the newspaper about it, and they published it on their front page. It was the Hendricks County Flyer. And anyways, my cousins were terrified and still are terrified of storms after that. But for
the cousins.
but for my sister and I, it was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to know more about that. So that was kind of like our defining moment. I wasn't watching anybody on TV. I mean, we did watch later several years later, like storm chasers on TV a lot, and thought that was really cool. But I didn't really have like a specific person. It was more of an event that drove me into this profession.
And it's actually crazy that event drove two people into that profession.
Right.
So your sister, is she in like the same type of like private setup like you guys are at, or is she like doing TV or radio,
No, she's actually right now working for, she has worked for the National Weather Service. Right now she's working for the Indiana Department of Homeland Security and the Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
And so she's in charge of logistics there. So she's heavily involved in COVID and distributing PPE across the state and stuff like that right now. Not as much meteorology as she would really like to be doing right now, but she's looking to get back into it.
I have to tell you guys, speaking of National Weather Service, my brother gets mad at me because, obviously you guys are a forecaster, but I always read the National Weather Service technical discussion. So you guys send a forecast and then I read the technical discussion and I'll be like, I don't know, what the European model has us for like, 17 inches of snow. And John will be like, why are you still trying to forecast our own snow removal? Anyways, but
we read those too, the technical discussions, but partly because, it's always good to have reinforcement. Like, okay, like good, they saw that too, and it's not going to be, this situation is going to be something different or whatever. But also because we like to nerd out and like the technical, like meteorologists are very nerdy people. Okay.
Yeah.
We look at maps and data all day. What was that?
When you said they're very nerdy people, she looked at me and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not afraid to admit it. But we look at maps and numbers all day. So what else? I mean, what else can you say really? But, so I lost my train of thought on that one.
Well, that was my fault because
it was your thing. Yeah, the National Weather Service.
This was my rabbit hole with the technical forecast discussion. So
Oh yeah, we're all over those too, and especially all of them really across the region that we forecast for. But we like the kind of the backup on the thoughts there, but also sometimes they have access to private data that we don't too. Like Northern Illinois, we really hate that there's no publicly available data for road temperatures in Illinois.
Yeah.
There is everywhere else that we service, but Northern Illinois, you can't find it. It's all privatized. So
yeah, we have a saying at Langton Group that 27 degrees trumps all. And what that really means is we don't care what pavement temperatures are. You could have 25-degree pavement temperatures. If it's 27 air temperature, you'll ice, Well,
that's good to note because people ask us all the time, JT is in that area, like I said, and they're like, well, do you think this will stick to roads? And you're like, I have no idea what your road temperatures are right now. And they're like, well, we don't either. Or some of them say they have like the laser things and they go out and check and stuff like that. But obviously it varies. But and I mean, it's obviously more of a concern. It's usually what they're asking when it's like right closer to freezing or like 30 to 32 degrees. And generally at that point, friction from the tires is going to keep things warmer. So, but yeah, it's frustrating not having that data available out there.
Yeah, we know that it's something we've commented on because you can go on all those different sites and see all this, and Illinois is like a dead spot. And but like I said, like we have a test lot that is outside our office that we don't even let anybody drive on, and so that we can be testing and taking pavement temperatures. But like I said, it never makes a difference. Like, even this snow that we had today, I mean, JP, you know what we just dealt with. And, we were like, kind of like, okay, is it going to get down to 27? We were like, no, 31. Okay. Then it's going to all melt on the roads anyways. It's like, I mean, that's truly like what we've realized, That's
really good information to know. I mean, it's not something that meteorologists can just, go out and tell. We're not physically out there doing, in the field when you guys are during the storm. So we actually love it when people pass along information like that to us. Like, client could say, well, it's starting to stick to the roads. It wasn't supposed to stick to the roads for another hour or something like that. And, we don't take that as, like a harsh comment or anything. It's okay. Well, let me look at this real quick and, see what's going on, see if it's going to make any changes or whatever. And it's good for us to know those things. So we appreciate the comments when we get feedback like from the field.
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody that's been in the industry for a long time, I mean, you start to realize, okay, snowflake size makes a difference, right? Because bigger flake, it just hits and it takes longer to melt. Wind makes a difference. Shading makes a difference. I mean, even what direction a building is in will tell you how much snow you're going to shovel in the beginning of the season and the end, but yeah, no, I mean, I'll tell you what, if you guys are ever like wondering, send us an email. We love to communicate this stuff back and forth.
That'd be awesome. Cause the road temperatures are, especially with these last year, it felt like it was all year. Like I felt like last year, cause usually you get to a point where it's cold enough, it doesn't matter. And last year, it was just like all year, I felt like, man, I'm still trying to figure out if these road temperatures are going to be too cold or too warm, rather, for snow to stick. And so, it's. Well, and even for us, like concrete surfaces, like asphalt surfaces are warm. Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
oh boy, are we going to get into specific heat capacities?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And we we are the type of company that we literally label our concrete lots to our asphalt lots so that we know which ones, and then we actually use different amounts of chloride based on those pavements.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Because we'll need more chloride on a concrete lot than a asphalt lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes complete sense. I mean, like I said, we're kind of those nerdy individuals who...
Here is how nerdy we are. We're walking along the beach in Florida, and I don't know, I think we got on to how hot the really sand was or something like that. And literally as we're walking along the beach on vacation, we're chatting about specific heat capacity of sand and parking lots and all this different stuff. And we're like, are we really talking about this on vacation? Like, are we really that nerdy? So that's my nerdiest moment, probably, maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, well, so you don't have to feel too bad. I'm the guy that I actually, for the longest time, wanted to get financial backers to manufacture a shingle that had the same albedo rate as snow does. Because I had this thought process that with climate change and everything happening with global warming, I was like, if we could just absorb less heat on roofs and not have it where it's blinding our airplanes, but just make it the same.
The reflective property would be the big thing there.
Yeah. So to get it to be the same as snow on a roof, it would make less heat on a roof and would help the environment. And I would tell people this, and they're like, do you ever sleep? Like, where do you come up with these stupid ideas? And I'm like, when I'm in a plow truck for 50 hours, all I think about is this kind of stupidity.
Yep.
All right. Well, anyways, we're going to crawl out of this rabbit hole here. So then, okay. So obviously we talked about your defining moments. So, a lot of people listening, they don't understand. I mean, they think meteorologist and they think, oh, you're on the TV, you're on the Weather Channel, you're Tom Skilling, but I don't think they realize how many meteorologists are employed behind the scenes that people just don't see, right? So what made you guys decide, not National Weather Service route or whatever to be in the field you're in?
I actually have interned, like I said, in broadcast meteorology at Fox 59, and I did that my senior year of high school. They actually don't let high schoolers intern. We just made an exception kind of for us because we knew Brian from a few years before that. We had met him and a few times, and then he kind of worked us in there. And so we started learning the kind of the trades of meteorology before we even got to college to really learn about it from him. So I interned there, and then when I was in college, I interned at the National Weather Service Indianapolis as well. So I got the broadcast side of it. I got the National Weather Service side of it, and I wasn't entirely sure what direction in meteorology I wanted to go. There's so many, like you said, most people think of broadcast meteorologists as being like the only ones, but they work in airports and schools and as hydrologists and for the hurricane hunters and the National Weather Service and all that. I mean, there are just dozens of fields that you could go into with a meteorology degree. but I wanted something that I could actually be involved in, like the forecasting side of things. I didn't really want to do research. I didn't want to be, I guess my biggest pet peeve with broadcast meteorology is that the news producers have quite a bit of say in what you're putting out there, whether that's actually on the TV or in like blogs on stuff online. They want it to sound more exciting than it is sometimes. And I wasn't about that. I was like, why can't I just give them the science and like tell them exactly what's happening? So I wanted to be more like scientifically involved and straightforward with that. And so I knew that broadcast wasn't for me. National Weather Service was fine, but then kind of, when I was still in college, TDS kind of fell into our laps based on the prior events that we talked about. And so that's the direction we went, and it worked out great for us.
JT, is it the same thing, or do you want to comment?
Yeah, sort of. I think for me, I actually interned here locally at Wish TV 8 under a couple meteorologists there. But like I said, I know Brian Wilkes real well, good friends with him. So I learned a lot from him. That was kind of the meteorologist I looked up to growing up, kind of like you looked up to Tom Skilling. Obviously, like I said, I kind of, when I was younger, I looked at Bob Gregory, but he retired when I was really young. So Brian Wilkes kind of became kind of the guy for me. But yeah, I started out thinking broadcast was the direction I really wanted to go, and I interned, and I actually didn't dislike broadcast. It just kind of happened that the door opened for me to go into the private sector, especially, the private sector is kind of the exploding sector of meteorology. Broadcast is, and even the National Weather Service to an extent, is an extremely competitive market. I think broadcast meteorology is like, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but I was thinking it's like the 7th most like sought after job in the world.
Oh, I have no idea.
So it's an extremely competitive market. So it's tough. It's tough to get a job there. Not that I necessarily was like looking for jobs just yet at that
You've
point.
had people continuously reach out.
Yeah,
I like how you do your videos on social media.
I've had job offers from, I had an intro job offer in a top 25 market, which is like unheard of.
Because they like the social media.
Because they like my social media. They like how I did the weather. They like the forecast. They like the accuracy of the forecast. And I turned them down because at that point, I just wasn't interested in at where I was in life. With the private sector, and I'm pretty happy in the private sector. I can't imagine that I would be happier elsewhere, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're happy about that too, because I enjoy it. and I like to tune into them. And, Beth, I wanted to comment just for people that listen that maybe are wondering why someone would, contract with people like you. What you brought up with broadcast meteorology and the producers having to say, what I always found, and I used to tell my customers when we first got into it, because, I started doing snow in 99. We really brought it larger scale in 05. But customers, we would be preparing for a larger event, and I'd have customers say, I heard on the news it's only going to be like 3 to 5 inches. And I'm like, no, this is when I was reading technical discussions. I'm like, no, there's a chance for like a foot of snow out of this, but there's only 2 models that say that. So they're not going to tell you that because they don't want to cause this mass panic. So they take the middle road, because these people get hate mail if they forecast a little bit wrong. And for me as a private person, if I'm prepared for the worst, everything is gravy. If I'm prepared for 20 inches, 7 inches is just a great moment for us, So when we started realizing companies like yours exist, we were like, okay, these people, their entire job is to prepare people like us to plan and do the right call outs and know if we're going to need B shift drivers and be able to buy the amount of chloride we're going to need for multiple storms. So, I just want to put that little thing out there for smaller contractors or people that listen that think, okay, is this something I should put into my, my labor rate and do it. I absolutely, it's a must because it changes the level of service for your customers by having unbiased weather forecasts based on the data and not based on needing ratings. So we're going to hype it to something that it's not, or we don't want to cause panic. So we're not going to say we could get 22 inches of snow today. So anyway, I felt the need to put that out there for you. So
yeah. And, we don't have, the freedom, if you will, to either play it safe or, to hype it, if you will. Our clients would just get mad and leave us. So we have to be, spot on. And I mean, nobody is going to be 100% correct 100% of the time. It's impossible in the field of meteorology. Obviously, that from working in the snow industry. But there are ways that you can be much more accurate than others. And, you mentioned a few minutes ago stuff about kind of like a model average situation. If you're always looking at a model average or going the middle of the road on the forecasts, you're going to miss, the bigger events because of that. Model averages get rid of those outliers. And, one small change, a half a degree in temperatures at, a mile up in the atmosphere could really shift an entire snowfall event from ice to snow or vice versa. So it's the little details and not completely throwing out solutions, ahead of time and warning, hey, some data is trending toward this, or, hey, we're backing off of this. We can let you know what we're seeing at all times.
Yeah, no, you guys do an awesome job. So I think you kind of already answered it, but it was a bullet point question. So, with all the other private services that are out there, which there's not a ton, but there are others, what do you guys think is your biggest differentiator? I mean, I feel like I already know the differentiator because I work with you guys, but not everybody does. So I'll let you guys speak to that. So
I think for us, there's a few things. I think one of the things is, kind of like here, we're personable. We will discuss the forecast with somebody on the phone, that kind of stuff. But I think probably if I were saying the biggest difference is there's a lot of companies out there, they send you a forecast and it's like a spreadsheet and it says 40% chance of snow here, 80% chance here, this, that, and that. Whereas us, like with how we do forecasts with a forecast video and a forecast blog, we're basically walking you through the day and saying, this is what we're seeing at this time, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do that, and these are the amounts we're expecting. These are when we're expecting the heaviest rates to occur. But not just that, we're also saying we can also go in. The nice thing about it is say, but with that being said, we could see where this could potentially go this way, or we could see it potentially, just like last night with one of the blog or the forecasts I sent out to Northern Illinois. I talked about lapse rates in front of Genesis and how that could potentially lead to higher amounts, especially as you work out towards like DeKalb and Rockford and west of the metro, west of the city. Because of that, I haven't seen the totals yet out there and how that, if that end up verifying to more than 3 inches or not. But it's things like that that you don't get with just a spreadsheet forecast. And so you don't have any kind of heads up. And so it's like, maybe our forecast called for 2 to 3 inches and you got 3.5 or 4. But usually a lot of times we're going to say, hey, well, this is the forecast, but understand there is the possibility for this to be an overachiever. Because if you're planning for 2 inches and you get 4 or 5 inches, or especially if you're planning for like an inch, inch and a half, and you get 3 or 4 inches on paved areas or hard surfaces, it's going to be a different story for how you're going to treat that. And I think the ability for us to at least convey the message and convey that could change, or there could be a change in that forecast, at least gives you the idea that there's a possibility there, and you can have a plan B or make it your plan A if you want to, and how to deal with that.
Yeah. I have a question, Joe, for you.
Yeah,
I'm going to flip it a little bit, just because I'm curious. So, like, off of what JT said here, we do like the visual and audible, like walking you through a forecast. If you received a spreadsheet forecast, which a lot of private companies, I would say most private companies still do, and you see, I've got a 40% chance of snow this afternoon. Like, can you plan around that? Whatever, like, how do you take that? Because I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Okay. So we have received those, and I actually have to tell you, you guys might not know this, but we believe we actually still forecast with both of you. Okay. I won't say the other person. And we still receive those. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the only reason we do is because if you just receive that with no interaction, it's actually pretty cheap. So it's like just another opinion.
Gotcha.
I mean, so first of all, it's important for you guys to know we're a self-performer. So we don't use subcontractors. So we have this year, 300 people? We have like 300 employees that are direct employees. Okay. So call out for us. If we call out an hour early, it could cost us a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. On the flip side, if we call out an hour late, it's going to cost us a lot of customers. Okay, right? So it is a fine line. I will tell you that, like, I love your videos. So to answer kind of a little bit of Beth's question, one of the things that we found with you guys is I love the videos because you get into the future. Okay, like you'll kind of say, okay, here's where we're at. This is what this RPM model says. This is what this model says. And you guys will kind of give a few scenarios, okay, which really helps us with call out. And you're right.
I'm going to add something real quick for legal purposes. We do not use the RPM model in any of our forecasts because we do not have permission to.
Okay, that might be my fault because I will watch WGN, and so okay, so that's good. I'm glad you did that. Okay, so whatever your model is, just know in my mind I know.
Yeah, no, we use GR Earth, so Gibson Ridge is our software.
Okay, so okay, awesome. I apologize. No,
it's okay. I just know there's been some people that have gotten in trouble because they have used the RPM and it's strictly a private sourced thing. You have to pay for it. And, so like Tom Skilling uses it. Brian Wilkes uses it. A lot of those guys use it.
Just remember, I already admitted I'm a dork. So I'll watch yours.
No worries. I just want to,
then I'll watch theirs and I'm like, all right, they're pretty close, So anyway. But
I wanted to add the disclaimer there.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. So I mean, when it comes down to it, when you just say, when you hear 40% or this or that, I mean, it doesn't do you a lot of good. The biggest thing for us that I'm looking for as a private guy is timing. Okay, like when's it going to start? Okay, and you have the tightest window possible. And then the biggest thing for us is our biggest nightmare are 1-inch snows. 1-inch snows, I think anybody in the northern Illinois market, because things change. Like if you're up Green Bay, it's 4-inch triggers. Down here in northern Illinois, I mean, it's all zero tolerance. I never even understand why people live in northern Illinois because they actually hate the snow. That's how they can't stand it. But it's like it's just what happens. So the point though is 1-inch for us is the difference between plowing or salting. Okay. So if you guys forecast should be less than an inch and we get like 1.25, you can know Langton Group is in like we're screwed mode because now we've got to get operators out, and the worst thing is to put operators on call, but then you don't call them. I mean, you guys know, think about how many events we have that are just under an inch, but they're forecasted 1 to 2. So imagine if you work for me, I put you on call and say, you guys might be in a machine tonight. And then I don't call you out. Well, they see it as, I hate that company. They never call us out. They put me on call. I can't drink. I can't party. I can't do this. I can't do that. And then they don't even call me out, so.
Yeah.
So that's like for us, when you guys forecast 3 to 6 inches of snow, this is awesome because we know.
It's much easier for us to forecast that.
Because we know we're in full call out, there's no way we're not going to plow snow. There's no way we're not going to salt it. Like it's easy. So I don't know if you guys realize that or not. And if other
and honestly, those are the events that I hate forecasting just because I know that. Like I obviously every company it seems like is at least a little different with their trigger points, but obviously regionally they're much different.
Yeah, we've gotten 1, 1.5, and 2 inches. I think.
Yeah. So, but it's like when we start to get in that especially getting like 3/4 of an inch to 2 inch range. That is just a storm that I'm not looking forward to forecasting. because I know that it is important for you guys. So I feel like I'm really trying to get into the nitty gritty of it. Yeah. And really feeling like, I don't want to say that I'm on the spot, but that I'm on the spot because I don't, I want you guys to be happy, and I want my forecast to verify well. And because I like to be right. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah, well, everybody, the most successful people, they want to win. They want to be right.
And so it's like, who was it? Vince Lombardi said the more effort and the more time you put into something, the harder it is to not succeed with it, or the harder it is to submit to law. I don't know, something like that. But that's what it is. It's like,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And so anyways, it's like, and those, I understand, like those storms for me are the ones that I am just like, I don't want to say dreading forecasting, because I don't want to say dread, but the ones that I'm like, man, this is a tough forecast, because I know one, a quarter, half inch one way or the other is not going to make people happy if I tell them one way or the other. But it's like, man, the only thing I will have to say, and this kind of circles a little bit back around to broadcast and talking about like hate mail, is the thing that I found that I love with the snow industry, and probably because you guys have dealt with it forever, is when we miss a forecast, by, obviously if it's a few inches, that might be a different story. But when we miss a bit of a forecast or something changes, you guys kind of understand that, hey, it's not going to be perfect every time. Whereas like if you're in broadcast and, you tell somebody that, in, Podunk, Illinois, that they're going to have 4 to 6 inches, and then they get 3 3/4 inches behind their house, behind the dumpster at CVS, they're mad. You're getting hate. Well, you said we could get 4 to 6 inches. We didn't even get 4 inches. Like, it happens. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I can't forecast for the dumpster behind CVS. It's not going to happen. And so, the thing I found with you guys is even though there is a lot of money on the line, you still, when we're not perfect, understand. And that is really, it's nice for us, because it does help take some of the like that feeling of like, oh God, I really got to get this right, and I'm going to blow it if it's going to be terrible. So we appreciate you guys understanding, and I found that the snow industry does seem to understand that a lot better than I would tend to say most other people.
Yeah, well, I think you hit it on the head. First of all, you are dealing with professionals that have been dealing with snow their entire life.
Right.
And secondly, I have this saying of, there's no value in free. So people that watch it on the news, it's a free weather forecast. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
So it's very easy to be overly critical of it, and there's no value to them. So to them, they're like, this is your job and you get paid to do it right. For us, we look at it as the value in the season. What are the other values we get? Do I have to get up every 30 minutes in the middle of the night to see if it's snowing, to know if I need to call my people out? Okay. Do I need to do snowfall tallies and reports? So if I get sued 3 years later because somebody slipped and fell, do I have to go through all that data, or can I have someone like you guys go through that data? Mm-hmm. There's more value to what you guys do than just providing a forecast. And I think that's
only half of our job.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, but
so
we spend more time putting together reports sometimes after the event than we did forecasting it.
Yeah.
So, which I would say that's probably our least favorite thing to do. Maybe is the snowfall totals. Yeah. Like last night we were literally up till 2 o'clock in the morning, because we were working on snowfall reports, and somebody was like, well, I don't think that this number is right in this spot. There's only one source of official reports that you can get, and we use the same ones we always do. And I think there's a data error somewhere, whether it's in the person that reported it or the system or whatever. And it wasn't too far off, but regardless, we were nitpicking through several things last night, trying to figure out which one the mistake is and which is the correct data to put in the report. We were literally up until 2 o'clock in the morning last night doing that. So I would say that is our least favorite part.
It's very tedious.
Yeah.
I can imagine I mean,
he would hate that.
I would hate that. So like, I hate that kind of stuff too. And
I don't mind doing it. It's just most of the time it's really, not that big of a deal for us. It's time consuming because we do it at the zip code level.
I mean, I suppose once you find the data and prove it, there's a reward there.
Yeah. One thing we like the results of it just to know how well our forecast verified and what was actually observed, but we could just look at that anyway without doing the reports. But yeah, it's a necessary evil, I would say. At the beginning of the season, we definitely don't mind to do it either. We're like, oh, this is kind of fun because, to put, look at the data and put it in and stuff. And then, when you hit like January and it's like back to back to back to back events and you're like, I've been doing snowfall totals for weeks on end and, they're like blurring together. It gets a little old at that point.
So I live in Bull Valley and it's like it's 10 minutes from Woodstock where our shop is at. And I always tell our shop that Bull Valley gets more snow. And my brother is always like, that's bullshit, this and that. Like, there's no way, So what we started to do though, is we monitor how much snow an area gets based on the melt off. Because we find that's more consistent. So, so like if Bull Valley says it got more, but 10 minutes away in Woodstock, it's 42 degrees in spring. If I still have 3 inches of snow in Woodstock, I will literally measure it and show my brother. This is because we dork out with this stuff. So I'll say see, it shows that Bull Valley had 5 more inches and there's 3 inches left. So we did have more anyways. I just had to bring up, we get into the snowfall totals and we've been burnt. The year we had the blizzard in Northern Illinois, where National Weather Service came out and said there was so much blowing and drifting that they were going to say like 19 or 21 inch totals. I mean, people in the snow industry just got absolutely screwed on those totals because, I'm convinced we had 3 feet of snow, but they came out, something I'll always remember, it came out in a technical discussion that we warmed up and there was so much snow between the river rises that they saw and the amount of snow that was still on the ground. They openly admitted that they think the totals were off in that snow. I don't know if you guys remember that.
So the official reports that we use, they not only take the official snowfall measurement, but they actually capture it in a little like clear tube. And they take it in daily. So they actually measure off of a white surface, a whiteboard that's on the ground. And
it's elevated above the ground slightly.
Okay, slightly elevated whiteboard. And then there's also a tube that catches the snowfall as well. And then they take that inside, generally to the microwave, melt it down. And that's how they get their liquid equivalent total for that. So we actually, when we see things that aren't lining up, we actually do go back and look at the meltwater, the liquid equivalents, to see what the ratios would have been or what they were in different locations, if that makes sense, to try to verify kind of the accuracy of the reporting as well. So, just a little tidbit about the official reports there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, a lot of contractors, so since I've been in business, is one of the reasons we do the podcast is like I'm really into mentoring other businesses. And one of the things that we do, we monitor the snowfall liquid ratios because we change the amount of chloride we use based on that. Okay. We see a lot of contractors over salt in a very high, in a 20 to 1 ratio snow. There's not a lot of liquid there to put that into brine anyways. So they tend to over salt. And then you have a bunch of material left over. So we actually change our color codings based on those liquid equivalents. But so, just so you know, like it's kind of cool that you went into that and explained it, because when we get into ice storms, one of the things that's always difficult.
Okay, I take that back. Forecasting ice is the worst, and then snowfall totals.
Okay, yeah, I'll get you that. That's correct.
For us, it is too, because we are trying to salt every 1/10 of an inch of ice. Because when you think about it, for people listening that are not in our industries, I'm getting into this just for them. An inch of snow, typically in like 12 to 1 fluffs up to, or at 10 to 1 would be, an inch of snow would be 1/10 of an inch moisture. In ice, So if we typically salt under an inch, in ice, we have to try to salt every 1/10 of an inch. And it's really hard to get our customers to understand in a 1-inch ice storm why they have ice. And I'm like, because we have to salt 10 times, technically, if you look at it just logically, to keep that lot free of ice. And it's one of the hardest things we have to overcome, especially when it comes to billing.
Usually forecasting, especially in the Midwest here, the ice storms, it's literally half of a single degree that separates a major ice storm from nothing. Like literally a half a degree of temperature. So that's why we hate it. A lot.
Yeah, and sometimes it's at some obscure level in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be half a degree at the surface. It can be half a degree further up in the atmosphere that, if we see, so like with winter precipitation, I'm sure like all of the precipitation starts out as snow high up in the atmosphere. And then as it goes through the air column, it will either stay as all snow, it'll melt partially down and then refreeze and you have sleet, or it'll melt all through the column of air and then it'll freeze again at the surface, which is freezing rain. If you have a half a degree temperature swing at any of those levels, it would affect the precipitation type that's falling. And I'm going to try not to get too
No, I love this. I like
it. I was going to say, and not only you were talking about snowflake size and stuff, we can see that from SCUT diagrams up in the atmosphere. It's called the dendritic growth zone, or the DGZ. If it's got plenty of moisture, we know that these are going to be big flakes falling. If it's a pretty dry, we're going to have tiny little snowflakes falling, from that system. And even though it's going to be a long duration event, it's probably not going to add up to much. So we can see that stuff higher up in the atmosphere before it even happens, which is a blessing and a curse, because then you're you can nitpick through it and be oh, well, see if this happens, this half degree here, we could be talking about a completely different scenario. So ice is not our friend.
In wind, we'll throw off that eccentric growth zone, because I've seen where technical discussions, they're talking about it, and then the day after you don't get those large snowflakes, and at 10,000 feet, there's a little more wind than the models expected. And flakes. I mean, it's people don't understand, and I only bring this up, how many variables can change in weather forecasting to completely change.
If people knew, they would not complain about meteorologists as much. There's so much. Yeah. And like I said, I went to Ball State, and meteorology is one of the it requires one of the most courses of any major at the university.
Yeah.
It's just so.
It's one of the reasons I became a businessman and not a meteorologist, because I saw
that's what my geography professor, he's like, you're becoming a meteorologist? Yeah. And he's like, once I figured out what went into it, I decided to be a professor of geography.
It's a lot of school.
A lot of math. A lot of classes and a lot of math. All the calculus and differential equations and all of that. And I don't care to ever see that again. Thankfully, I don't have to use it on a daily basis, but the weather models that we use on a daily basis all have that integrated in. So that's one of the reasons I did not want to go in the research field. It would be a lot of math, and I was not ready for that.
So since we've already told our listeners, you can't hate the meteorologists for their opinions and what they think. I have to ask, and even though you guys have your long range outlook out for this winter, I know it's always constantly changing. And one of the things that I noticed is there's a lot of snow cover. It seems like we're getting a lot of snow down in North America compared to seasons past. So do your guts tell you stay with the forecast? Do you think there's any variables, any changes? What's your thoughts? We're talking just for the Midwest, by the way. I'm going to be selfish. I don't care about the Northeast or anybody else. Just us.
Just for what?
I said I'm being selfish.
I don't either. No, I'm just kidding.
What did you say? We had a lag. What did you say?
You said we don't care about the Northeast or anything, and I said, good, we don't either.
I think our outlooks cover the nation, because that's generally what you see, so you can understand more of the pattern. But when we talk about, the details of the winter forecast, it's like our forecast area based, the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, that's where we're talking. But as far as we haven't seen any significant changes since we put out our outlook. We will look as we get into the first week of December, just because this is the holiday week, if we need to make any final adjustments to that. A couple of things I'm seeing is the potential for December to be pretty warm, but that's not uncommon for strong La Nina years like we're seeing. So it's not really a concern for the overall outlook. The Southeast Ridge, though, like we've seen in the last several winters, especially as we get into like February, March timeframe, could be a pretty big contender for warmth pumping in to like the eastern half of the United States. And that could pose some issues, which is why we haven't, it's one of the reasons why we have like the below normal snowfall area, that you guys saw in the outlook from like the mid-Atlantic and into the southern Ohio Valley. But overall, I think that the risk, if temperatures are going to go colder or warmer, I think that the risk is on the warmer side. We could see that, temperatures pushing warmer than our initial forecast went. Still think it's going to be wet, but not necessarily white. I don't think it's going to be.
Are you the farmer's almanac or what? Wet, but
no.
not necessarily
I just
white.
wanted to emphasize.
Yeah.
Just want to emphasize that wet does not mean more snow. It means more precipitation in general.
That's like moisture is there, but not necessarily flakes in the air.
But just knowing that means you read it. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love to. I mean, I don't like base anything off of it, but I love to read it. I love everything about the Farmer's Almanac. To be quite honest with you,
what's crazy is how many. I think for me, I'm the guy that sees it on like a kiosk at a store, and I'll scan it, look through where I need, look at it, and I put it right back. Like they should have a little key to open it. If you want to read it, you got to buy it. But
see, my grandpa's the one that like will randomly buy me one and be like, "Hey, I know you like this. Here, take it and read it." Like, I mean, I grew up in a farming community, so to them, that's like the Bible, really. And so it's like, so like everybody's always like, "Well, have you seen what the Farmer's Almanac has said?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. What do you want me to say about it?" Pretty cool, I guess. I don't know.
Every once in a while, when that blind squirrel gets a nut and it says it's going to January 10th, massive snow in the Midwest, and it happens.
And they're like, "Did you see it called for it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, did you read the previous week's discussion? Well above average with no precipitation, and temperatures were still 10 degrees colder, and we still got some snowfall. Like, did you even read? Like, are you picking what you're getting there?" So anyway, sorry about that, Beth, but it kind of made me laugh because that's what it reminded me of.
Anyway, no significant changes that we've seen so far for the winter outlook. Like I said, if temperatures are going to swing one way, it'll probably be to the warmer side. Still thinking that we're going to see a very active pattern. We're already seeing that over this week and last week, and continuing into next week as well, seeing that active pattern. But I don't know. I'm not overly confident in a big snowfall year. I mean, with the strong La Nina that's in place, that doesn't mean that big snows can't happen. And obviously, that one big snowfall event can change an entire season's percent, So it's really kind of naive to say that. And generally we're looking at moisture and temperature trends, not necessarily specific on the snowfall. It was just so glaring and analog data, I feel like this year is why we put together like the actual snow anomaly map instead of just precipitation and temperature. So kind of just wet, near normal maybe ish temperatures.
Well, we have a lot of seasons.
Kind of a so-so.
So I'm okay with that. That means I can keep doing podcasts and I'm not sitting in a plow truck as a backup.
The only bad thing is we don't like mild years as much. Because it means that lake effect is going to continue the entire year instead of seeing those lakes freeze over and stop that. So a lot of lake effect events probably.
Yeah. Well,
I'll just say I agree with Beth. We don't even need to go into what I think, because I think pretty much exactly what she thinks there. So
I actually have to say, I assumed you were going to take that one and run because I thought you're the long range guy, but I was.
Well, I am, but we like to surprise people,
Yeah, it was a good surprise. So
we both work on the long range stuff. JT just kind of digs further into the patterns of it and then delivers it. So I'm still there, just kind of more behind the scenes in the long range stuff.
Yeah. So outside of your work life, outside of meteorology, and now you guys have told us you're in. What's that you said?
I go, what's that? I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah. So explain that minuscule, minute amount of your life outside of it for people.
Yeah. So, our life, especially like November, depending on the year, sometimes it might not be till December, but generally November through March, no, not March, I wish, April, May timeframe. We don't have a tremendous, life outside of forecasting. If we're lucky, we'll get breaks here and there and we can do stuff. Really, so here's what we tell people is, in the winter, we're up, sometimes 12, 14, 16 hours forecasting, doing stuff. But we tell people, in the warm season, even though we're still forecasting, it's not as intense. And so that's kind of our time to kind of our downtime to do what we like to do, which we have, we have a lot of stuff we like to do. Obviously, like we said, we're engaged and we enjoy doing a lot of the same stuff. So, outside of work, I've really gotten into like fitness. So I've actually, not to toot my own horn, but I've lost about 40 pounds. So I've gotten into fitness. I like to run. I found that I shouldn't say I like to run, but I run. So I've gotten into like running 5 to 7 miles several times a week. And I do some weight training, some resistance training. So we actually do
any of that. I don't partake.
Yeah, she will only run if something's chasing her.
Yes.
So anyways, we play.
I play pickleball for exercise.
Yeah, so we play a sport called pickleball. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
I've actually played that in school. It's actually kind of fun.
So we actually play tournaments. We're actually sponsored to play pickleball. So we play tournaments a lot and do that in the warm season. And so we do that. We like to fish. We're very adventurous. We like to hike. We like to travel. I'm trying to think. Storm chase, obviously. The last few years have been terrible. They haven't really been active severe weather-wise. So that...
we golf when we can.
Yeah, we golf. But
our clubs,
we don't
unfortunately...
golf a whole lot.
Yeah, our clubs unfortunately got stuck in Florida because of the pandemic this year. My parents live down there. So we went last winter, late November last year, to visit them. We were going to go back in March. We were going to bring our clubs back. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and we didn't want to travel. And our clubs got stuck there. We kept postponing. We didn't know, obviously, at the time how long it was going to last. We kept postponing a few weeks and then a few weeks more. And we just finally got down there in October. So we were kind of golfless this year, but we also enjoyed that when we can.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we live
definitely traveling though.
We live on a golf course,
and we don't.
I think I golf times a year, maybe.
I actually can't.
Oh yeah.
I'm very athletic. I can't hit it.
So our sport, we play volleyball.
Yeah.
I played volleyball for 11 years.
What, you played volleyball?
Yeah, for 11 years.
What position?
Outside hitter.
I felt like she was going to be a setter. I don't know why.
Well, I was at first. I was a setter for probably the first 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then outside hitter. Yep. I used to have hops until I hurt my ankle several times. And now I bet I couldn't even get like 6 inches off the ground to play. I actually have reoccurring nightmares that I'm playing volleyball and like my feet are stuck to the floor and I can't like jump to like hit it or anything.
There was actually a time I went to hit the ball. This was in middle school though. This was a long time ago. I went to hit and I forgot to land. Like I did not use my feet. I just without doing anything. That was terrible.
So what was your touch? So if you're an outside hitter, what was your
like vertical reach?
Your vertical reach.
Oh gosh, I don't even remember.
I don't even remember.
I am.
So this is the proud father moment. Hers was 9'7". So that's what.
And I'm 5'8".
She's 5'8".
Okay, I'm like 5'6.5", so I was not super tall, especially to be a hitter. But I used to be able to jump like quite a bit, and like I have this picture and it's just like this massive distance between my feet and like the ground, and I don't even know who took the picture. But I think back to that, I'm like, yeah, I definitely can't do that anymore.
We get nervous when she turns around to try to go get a lob in pickleball. I'm like, oh, I probably should go get that.
I have a bad ankle, but
both of her ankles or something. So
yeah, I have one bad ankle from volleyball. I played volleyball and basketball and golf in school, and landing on other people's feet was not good, and it led to several ankle injuries. And thankfully, pickleball is not as hard on that. So I just make him do like the running when they kind of lob it over us.
It
works out.
I think it's fun. I don't think he's ever played that.
No, now I've got to actually watch
I don't think he would enjoy it. I don't think you.
No.
Explain why I wouldn't enjoy this.
I don't think.
Do you like tennis?
At it.
Yeah,
it's a lot less running than tennis.
Yeah, it's a lot less running than tennis.
Okay, so here
yeah.
I've got to explain this to you guys. So I'm 6'4". I'm 280 pounds. I surprise people that I'm even as good at volleyball as I am. I'm pretty good at volleyball.
Yeah.
Okay? But I like sports that I can use my size and might.
Yeah, well, pickleball, you totally could use, your height. Nobody could lob over you, probably.
Yeah, that would
JT's uncle is about the same height.
Would have that.
Okay, so maybe we should look at it.
I don't know. I don't think he would like it that much, but we'll try it out. I'll try it with you.
Well,
it's becoming like really popular actually around the entire world.
What we need to do is when it warms back up, we'll bring up a net and we've got a bunch of paddles and we'll just have a pickleball day.
Hey, that's awesome. This is what's awesome about podcasts. Once you do a podcast with somebody, it feels like you're friends for life. So
yeah.
Good. Yeah, we'll get together.
Definitely give pickleball a try. It's a blast.
Podcast, everyone has been saying yoga is what they do.
They want
we were going to do a yoga session.
I'm like,
we were talking about that last night.
Really?
We've never attempted, but like people say it's so good for you to do.
Oh, I've attempted.
Oh, it must not have gone well because I didn't know about that.
Well, so I attempted it in my own home using like videos, and it's hard because like it would be fine, but I'm trying to I don't know any of the poses, so I'm like watching these people doing poses, and by the time I figure out how to properly do them, well, it's time to go to the next one. And it's like I can't keep up with it, and that's the problem.
I feel like I wish I could have seen this. Not for me.
No
Beth,
comment.
I think there's a reason you didn't see it.
Probably not.
There's a reason it was in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah.
He was alone, apparently.
I'm really impressed that he shared with us, not only with you, but with
this is brand new information for me too.
It's total transparency.
Yeah, awesome. So
I'm curious. Okay, last up, do you guys storm chase together, or is that like a solo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite memory of storm chasing? Like, are there any really cool ones you guys have chased?
Yeah. Go ahead, Beth. I know what yours is.
You do? Oh, Rivington?
Probably.
Well, I was also going to say the day that we got robbed in Texas.
It's not.
The day that okay, yes. Hold on. So,
well, that's a story.
Two different things though. So, my favorite storm chase, I don't know. My closest storm chase was Remington, Indiana. JT was with me that day, though. We were both storm chasing, and we had a tornado touchdown in a field only about 100 yards from us. And it was a really slow. We knew that it was going to be like a slow moving day, so it was safer to get closer. We knew that any tornado that developed would be weaker. And actually, there was a marginal risk for severe weather out that day, so very, very low end. But we had been telling clients for a few days ahead of time, hey, there could be a tornado this day, up in northern Indiana. And we just kept at it, and we're like, they still weren't confident in anything. We just decided we were going to go up there and sit and wait for storms to develop. And the very first storm that came right at us, we stayed on it and produced a tornado touchdown about 100 yards in a field from us. And we actually had to back up so we could get pictures of it because it was too close to us. You couldn't really, I couldn't get in the frame. So that was probably the favorite tornado I've seen. I've seen 28 tornadoes all across the country. When I was at Ball State, a group of us went storm chasing for a couple weeks out in the plains. And yes, one of the days we did get robbed in Texas. we were storm chasing in, I think it was either Central Texas or in Oklahoma. And we knew we were going to stay the night in Amarillo. And we had called earlier in the evening. We booked our hotel rooms with a credit card. And we told them, we wouldn't be there until like 10 or 11 p.m. Don't give the rooms away, whatever. They did. And there were like 2 big name concerts in town that night. Like Kenny Chesney was one of them, and I can't remember who else.
I think Jason Aldean was the other one.
Yeah, maybe. So the hotels were all like completely booked, and these people gave away our room, even though we were, we had a card on it and told me we were going to be late and stuff. And so we had to find a hotel late at night, and we found this like motel. And it had just been remodeled. So it was like a nice, like the rooms were nice, but it was like, it was a motel. It wasn't a hotel. So like the doors to the rooms were on the outside of the building. They were.
Oh, I hate it. He makes me.
I do too.
Places. No, not for me.
So I'm not scared of anything. So like, I'll be like, we're fine. She's like, yeah, this is where people go to get murdered. Like we're not.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
So,
anyways, carry on.
So we get to the motel. And it's very nice, like the rooms. Like I said, it had just been completely remodeled. The outside was okay. But then they tell us that our rooms are around the back of the building and the lights are all burnt out back there. So we're like walking around with our phone flashlights, like to, find the room. Room was nice, whatever. So every morning we would all gather in like one of the rooms. JT's already laughing.
Well, there's no red flags there, are there?
Yeah, so the red flags continue. So each morning we would gather in one of the rooms to kind of like have a meeting and make our plan for the day and stuff where we wanted to chase. And, we were gathered in one of the middle rooms, and one of the rooms, their key stopped working like an hour before we were going to leave. So instead of going to get a different key, they just left the door propped open, and we were 10 feet away. It didn't really matter, right? Well, apparently in the middle of the meeting, 2 of the rooms had gotten robbed. And like they took everything: laptops, phones, iPads, hotspots, wallets, cell phones, all of that. And we realized it right away. So we went and filed the police report and stuff. And they're like, well, 2 people just got murdered on the other side of town, so it's going to be a while for somebody to get there. And, so we kind of wait and stuff. Well, all of a sudden we get a ping, like somebody had the Find My iPhone app on their iPad. And the people who stole it turned the iPad on. So we got a notification and a GPS location of where it was. So naturally, a group of us, not including myself, I wouldn't do this, just decided to start driving toward the GPS location of where the iPad was. And so we called the cops back, and we're like, hey, we found the location of where they're at with the stuff. We've got a group of people headed there right now. And they're like, well, do you have the address? And I was like, yeah, I gave it to him. And she was like, somebody got murdered there last week, and there were drug issues there last night at that house. So you need to go park at this apartment complex on the end of the road and just like watch the house. Don't go there. And so we did that. And we were in a big van because there were a bunch of us. There were like 14 of us. And so here we are sitting in like this creeper van at this apartment complex in like the hood of this town that we don't know. And we sat there for like 3 full hours waiting on the police to come. Anyway, they ended up finding, they went in there, they did a search of the vehicles and the house, and they found all of the stuff in grandma's closet. And they ended up recovering everything except for one SD card and a phone. So that was all that we ended up losing after all of that. But yeah, ended up leaving for Kansas 4 hours late, but we still saw 5 tornadoes that day. So it ended up working out okay.
And you have this great story to tell about that.
The police.
That's quite a story. Yeah.
And I will never.
The police thought it was like really cool. The police thought it was like really cool that we were like storm chasing and stuff. So they asked for like pictures with us, like outside of the vehicles before we left that day. And then it was either that day or the day after we broke the windshield and the mirrors off the Ball State vehicles.
From hail?
Yeah. There was a hailstorm, and one of my professors was with us, and he was like very focused on booking a hotel for that night, and it was the middle of the afternoon. And instead of moving, he was like, let's just sit here so I can book this hotel. And we kept telling him, hail's coming right at us. And we didn't move, and we got pummeled with softball-sized hail or baseball to softball-sized hail, and it didn't bode well for the vehicle. They came back very beaten up.
Yeah, so I've never seen a tornado. I've always been like, somehow close enough to be in proximity to see the damage, never actually seen one. And it's like when I tell her all the time, like, I want to see a tornado, and she never understands why. But that, and there's
most people don't,
that wants to wants to ride out a hurricane, because I actually think hurricanes are just fascinating.
I think it would be fun one time to do it. It'd have to be a strong hurricane. Just because I would want to see the stadium effect inside the eye.
Yes, that would be, yeah.
I think my parents, so they live like an hour north of Orlando, so they're in very central Florida. So I don't think that they would get a good enough, hurricane to go right over them. I think it would weaken too much before it got inland. But I want to be down there to experience a hurricane once, and a good one, not just 4 days of rain showers, because that would be boring. I want to see some action. So
yeah.
I don't know. Just once I want to see it. JT's not as crazy about that. He's like, I'd rather go down to Florida when it's sunny.
I lived in Florida for a few years, and when I was younger, rode out some tropical storms. So it's just, it's not as exciting as you think.
Yeah, but those are weak.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I saw that,
it's something good.
That hit. What was that?
Okay, a wedge EF5 tornado across the field. I'll take that instead.
I mean, I'm not going to complain. We prefer storm chasing out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, so that there's not a danger to.
Yeah, because you can see everything, and you're nothing.
Yeah, because but we never want to see anything destroyed by them. I would say probably 90% of the tornadoes that I've seen didn't do a single inkling of damage. They're just out in the middle. That's where we're in the middle of Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, and a lot of times there's nothing around, and that's why it's important to have storm chasers and storm spotters, so you can know what's going on when you're in between radars or when people aren't around, so that's helpful too. But we definitely prefer to see them out in the middle of absolutely nowhere doing no damage. But yeah, we haven't gotten this chase a lot the last couple of years, so maybe next year will be another good year.
Yeah. Well, you guys can send
I'll believe it when I see it.
Because I'm sure I won't be able
Yeah.
to see some, but at least I'll be able to see one,
We chase in Illinois quite a bit.
Illinois is actually my favorite state to storm chase in.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because it's, most of it's flat, especially once you get I-70 northward. And especially those roads, once you get up towards El Paso and Bloomington and those areas. I mean, obviously you have a little bit of a river valley up towards Peoria and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few little river valleys there, but the roads are just like grids. I mean, it's just and
mostly paved too.
And they're back and forth, but I mean, gravel roads don't bother me. But yeah, I mean, it's just a good place. I mean, obviously partially it's close to home, so we can be there in 3 to 5 hours, pretty much anywhere we want. But yeah, it's flat. The roads are great. The network and the overall quality generally. I love the chase there. I mean, and
cell signal's good.
Yeah, cell signal's
except
good.
for that one city.
You've got, plenty of gas stations. It's, sometimes you go out into the plains and you get out in the middle of nowhere, and you might go for a while without gas stations, and you're looking down am I going to run out of gas in the middle of absolutely nowhere? And I love to chase Illinois. That's my favorite. I get excited when I get a chance to chase there. So,
all right. Well, since if that's the case, you can send, when you guys are chasing, you can say, hey, we think there's going to be a tornado. Maybe her and I will just venture down there and we'll see if I see something.
You've been roped in.
I'll be on Zoom with you while you're driving. I don't know.
It's my job as her dad to always push her out of her comfort zone.
Now, that's a different company. Terrifying.
I mean, you can. Everybody has to pay attention for storm motion and stuff, how fast things are moving. So if it's a fast moving storm, even we don't get close to it at all. I mean, we would stay at least a mile away.
Yeah.
But obviously, like the one in northern Indiana, we just sat and waited because we knew it was moving at, 5 or 10 mile an hour, extremely slow. You can get out of the way of it really easily. So
my dream is to find this giant wedge tornado that's just huge. and it's just barely moving across the field. So I can like get with close enough to like feel the wind hitting me off of it. Like that would be awesome. Like it's really rare. Like there's this tornado from out in called Bodle, South Dakota. It's this little farm town. It really wasn't much of a town. But there was a tornado that developed outside of it. And it's like this huge, massive, just wedge tornado. And it just didn't hardly move anywhere. But like the storm chasers are like just like pulling right up to it basically and knocking on its front door. And it's like, man, that would be so cool. Like to be that close to this massive tornado and really have confidence that it's not like gonna, speed off or shift direction or whatever. And you can just be that close and like kind of feel the power of it. That would be
just like
something
tie us down to the car in just in case.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine the amount of damage a big tornado like that. I mean, even though it's localized, like I would almost like want to see like once it dissipates, like, I mean, did it just completely, I mean, was it just earth at that point?
Yeah. So here's something crazy. So I don't know if you guys really remember, but this was like the big story back in, what was it? It was the Dixie Alley outbreak 2012, 2013?
2011.
2011, one of those years. Anyways.
The super outbreak, you mean?
Yeah, the super outbreak.
I think it was,
anyway,
April 14th,
so here's a crazy story from that. That was like I don't want to term it the super outbreak because I reserved that for 1974. But the Dixie Alley
super outbreak.
Yeah, the Dixie Alley outbreak down into Georgia, Alabama, southern states. After that was over, my dad actually went down with a group to do some recovery efforts. And he sent me pictures of where one of the EF5s went through and where it had went over roads. It had actually ripped up the blacktop and the pavement off of the road and just dirt was left. That's how strong it was. So, I mean, it's wild to think how strong these tornadoes are. They can get ridiculous. But you can see images after like, especially strong tornadoes going through farm fields and stuff where you can actually see like the circular pattern where the tornado went through and see how that was like laid out in the dirt and stuff.
Yeah. 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 Especially with corn and stuff. It's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Evident, So, Well, guys, you guys have spent quite a long time with us and we appreciate it. I think
we're chatty people.
What was that, Beth?
I said, we're chatty people.
Well, I actually like it. Listen, maybe, this is good. This sets the foundation and platform for us to chat more in the future. We can communicate.
Yeah, for sure.
Temperatures and stuff like that in Northern Illinois. But we greatly appreciate your guys' time and coming on. And
thanks for having us.
Yeah. You guys,
we were glad to be here.
We'll be looking forward to your forecasts all winter, So.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, hey, real quick. I never got the date. When are you getting married?
Oh, we don't have one yet. Everything going on right now, waiting.
Yeah,
no masks in the pictures and everything.
Yeah, COVID's kind of thrown a wrench into it because we don't really want to put any of our high risk, family members to make them feel like they either, make them feel like they have to choose of, either go and take the risk of being exposed and who knows what happens, or not going and missing something that we know that they would want to be at. And we don't want to do it like via Zoom call or something like that. So that
I think our families would kill us.
Yeah, especially hers, probably mine as well. So we're just kind of, waiting it out at this point to see, hopefully in the next, 6 to 9 months, we can start making some good progress on this and get something, once we see that it's happening, get some dates set. So.
Awesome. Yep. Well, it seemed rude not to ask, so sorry I threw that in.
Oh, that's all right.
I had it written down to ask, and I saw as I flipped the page. So anyways, it was great getting to know you guys better. And you guys are awesome. We appreciate everything you do for us, and we hope to talk again soon.
Absolutely.
Sure,
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.